preparing this for us.
Great. Thank you, Stu. And first, I want to congratulate all of you on helping them in some sort of function for the past 5 years. And I would say that the growth that I've seen the students go through is really impressive. So congratulations on that. I myself am a formally trained opera singer. So I did my undergraduate and graduate degrees in music and found my way into higher education. So the role that I serve is external relations. So I work on behalf of the School of Business and now for MSB on building relationships with companies, alumni, and such to provide you with as many opportunities as possible. And you'll see that throughout the year. So today, internship search strategy, part 1. So this is doing your research. This is meant to supplement the conversation we had on Monday. So on Monday, we talked about your resume skills or building your resume and cover letter. And here we're going to do the research on what type of internship are you interested in? What type of industry are you looking to join? What skills are you looking to develop? So we're going to dig deep into where students in the past have interned, which types of industries, what type of roles, and I'll give you a little more insight into what's available so you can start to do your research there. So goals for today, for this session, we're going to learn more about industries and job functions and the skills you'll need there. Begin to research what might be a good fit for you. Explore specific companies and roles. Start to think about where you see yourself in 1, 5, 10 years. So I do this myself, always kind of thinking, you know, am I developing skills that I may need maybe in 5 years, or am I developing the skills that I'll need in where I see myself in 1 year? So starting to see it as a bigger picture. In the next 2 sessions, we'll touch on tips on how to navigate the search posted roles in companies, dig deep into what a day in the life is like for an MSB intern. So really see what's it like to do school and do your work. Cultivate your outreach skills and manage your expectations, and hopefully get that great role. I'd like to keep this as collaborative as possible. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or type into the chat, and either Bill or Mary Kate, if you could help me out with that and stop me if there's a question. There's going to be a lot.
I can manage the chat, Dan.
There's a lot of information, and a lot of this is going to be personal to each of you. So take lots of notes and just feel free to stop me if you have any questions. So first, we're going to start with what is an internship? According to the Council for the Advancement of Standards in Higher Education, an internship is a planned experience in professional, work-related settings that relates to or complements students' academic and career goals. So there's lots of different types of internships, and as you'll see in the MSB program, none of you will have the same experience. So currently, given COVID and even in the past, there's in-person and remote. So there's internships where you're going to go in every day, work one-on-one with your manager and colleagues, and leave and go to class. And then there's remote internships, and they've existed before COVID. So these are opportunities that maybe you don't need the one-on-one interaction as much in the office. And so some of these smaller startup companies, they don't have an office. So everyone's on their computer in a coffee shop, or you can even come do an empty classroom and work remote. So there's those 2 options, and that existed before and during COVID. Full-time and part-time internships. There are internships that people are working 35 hours a week. We recommend in this program that you look for more of a part-time internship, so 15 to 20 hours, because you have a lot of class and assignments, so focusing there. But there are, for certain industries like finance, upon graduation, specifically for undergraduate students, there are those full-time internships where they're developing skills until they grow into a full-time salaried position. And then there's structured internships and there's startup internships. So when I say structured internship, I mean that it's typically in a large company that has an internship program. So they have a very stylized formula behind this. So you come in with a cohort. Everyone works in a specific job function. You have specific deliverables and professional development opportunities in these structured positions. And then there's startup positions. And in DC, there's a huge startup community. And these positions may not be so defined. It may be, you know, hey, Catholic University, I have hired some of your students in the past for an internship. Would love to hire an incoming MSB student. So in these startup environments, you might be a jack of all trades. And so if you like the idea that no day is the same, then this startup might be really good for you. You could get your feet wet in marketing and finance and just kind of grow, because startup, there's not these formalized business functions like in a larger company. So starting to think, am I a structured person? Am I kind of, hey, do I like to have specific deliverables and, you know, put my computer away and check in the next day? Or do I like that no day is the same and it's a fly by the seat of your pants type of personality? So kind of checking in with your personality to see what might be of more interest to you. So as I mentioned before, in the MSB program, internships will look different for each of the students, and specifically different than undergraduate students. So here I broke up internship versus part-time job. So underlined is where the typical MSB experience lies. So an internship, there's intentional professional training towards a career. Yes, definitely for you guys. It complements the academic curriculum. Absolutely. We want you to be using the skills that you're learning in class in your internship. May receive academic credit. While we do have this internship component to the program, there is no academic credit. So this is just a part of building your professional experience. Whereas in the undergraduate experience, you may have, you know, a 3-credit course where you do your internship. We don't have that in this program. Does not displace regular employees. So that's going to where the structured companies are. There's a cohort of interns that are just supporting different people throughout the company. So then in the part-time job side, it's not necessarily aimed at career development. It's not necessarily academically complementary. It cannot receive academic credit. Here's where it applies to MSB. Works as a regular employee. A lot of our students, especially in that startup, like I mentioned, or smaller companies, nonprofits, the MSB program lends itself for you to be a part of the team. So because you have class 2 to 6 in the evenings, you're in the office or remote checking every day from say 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So I really believe that most MSB students and their internships become part of the team and they feel like a regular employee. So that's where I underlined there. So this is just to give you an idea of the differences. Why do we ask you to have an internship? So number one, gain professional experience and build your resume. This is huge. I know a lot of you are coming from liberal arts or STEM backgrounds and you may not have traditional business experience, which is okay. Neither did I. I was an opera singer. So, you know, finding different opportunities to get that professional experience and build your resume. Building your network. So you're going to be working in an office and you're going to be meeting lots of people. And so just being a good colleague, meeting different people, maybe saying, hey, let's grab a coffee if you have time. Can I learn more about your experience, your education? Do you have any advice for me? So starting to get into that habit of building your network. Learn what you want from a career and also what you don't want. So this internship does not mean it will be your job. So it's just to get into business and learn what you like and what you don't like. You know, maybe you're going to take on a sales internship and you're going to say, I love working with people. This is amazing. This is what I'd like to do. Or you take on the sales internship and you say, you know, talking to people all day long is not for me. I learned these skills in Excel or whatever they trained you on, and that was great, but I'm going to pivot, and that's totally okay too. And that's why you have the internship, to learn what works for you and what doesn't work for you, to develop transferable skills. And wherever you intern, I'm sure there's going to be some technical skills that you need to learn, as well as soft skills. So maybe you'll be presenting and you'll gain interpersonal skills, or maybe you're interning somewhere where they really use Excel and they're going to train you on Excel, and you're only going to be the better for that. So you're going to develop these skills so you can take it on to your next full-time position, and also use when you're looking for a full-time job. And finally, to apply what you're learning in the classroom. So we have really great professors. A lot of our professors are professionals themselves, and they're going to be teaching you a lot of business profession skills that we'd like for you to use in your internship. What could you expect from your internship? Put theory into practice, develop critical thinking skills, practice communication skills, learn and develop technical skills, foster teamwork and collaboration in a professional setting. So these are all things that you could and should expect to utilize in your internship. So it's really taking what you're learning in the MSB program and putting it to use to improve yourself, to build your skills, build your network, and become a professional in the business world upon graduation. All right, so I wanted to start with a little story about a former MSB student. I did change the name, but this will give you an idea of why the internship is so important. So we have Jeffrey. Jeffrey was a music major. Jeffrey was a part of some of the operas in undergrad, but Jeffrey also was an honors student. Jeffrey played sports. So Jeffrey didn't quite know what he wanted to do. But he did know, you know, I got my music degree, but I don't think that music is quite for me in the sense of a career. So Jeffrey met with Bill and decided to do the MSB program. Jeffrey, through some interning over the networking over the summer and meeting with some of the staff of the MSB program, found an internship in sales and business development for a tech startup type company in Northern Virginia. And there, Jeffrey learned how to cold call, or kind of call people to build business and bring the business in. He also learned some technical skills in Excel and a CRM, which we'll touch on a little bit later, which is very important to the sales roles. And Jeffrey realized, you know, I can do this. I like business. I like working with people, but maybe I don't want to be in technology. So Jeffrey started in his spring semester to talk to a lot of people in his network that he met in the MSB program, had some informational interviews, and learned that, you know, I do like numbers and I do like people. And finally, he came across a position at Morgan Stanley as a wealth manager. So within the span of 10 months, Jeffrey went from a music manager at Morgan Stanley. And one of the big components to this was his internship experience. Now, he's not in a typical sales position, but he's using those sales skills that he developed in his internship. So we would call that transferable. And he's using some of the technical skills he gained in the Excel and the CRMs in his current position. So this gives you an idea of why we ask for you to have an internship, because it really helps you find a really great position upon graduation. Here we have a graph of where typically MSB students intern. This data is from the recent graduating class. So the big three are technology, nonprofit, and consulting. Now, I don't know if many of you are familiar with the consulting world, but There's the big four that a lot of people have heard of. They do the count for the Oscars, like PwC and Deloitte. Those types of companies, they're large accounting, they do government contract. But in DC, there's also a really robust community of smaller consulting firms that work on specific business problems that companies may have. So that's typically where our students intern. They're not in the large consulting companies that a lot of people may be familiar with, but they're in these niche type companies that really lend themselves to the program and allow our students to gain invaluable experience. So that's consulting. A lot of technology in the Northern Virginia, DC area. It has been dubbed the Silicon Valley of the East. And so because there's government, there's a big need for these tech companies to have a presence. So they call it the public sector. So these are, if you're familiar with, let's say Verizon has a large customer base of us with our cell phones and different and private companies. So data and businesses like credit card companies and everything, but they also serve the government. So the government needs to store data. The government needs to have secure lines for the Pentagon and everything. So there's a lot of technology that exists in the DC area, specifically in cybersecurity, which we'll expose you to in the program. The third large section that I mentioned was nonprofit, huge in DC. There's lots and lots of nonprofits, and they run the full gamut of different industries. So whatever your interests are, I'm sure there's a nonprofit in DC. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but there's a really large amount of opportunities in nonprofits because it's for profit or nonprofit. There's all the different business functions within a nonprofit. So there's a lot of different types of experiences you can have within the nonprofit. Some of these other industries that we have: arts and entertainment, higher education, real estate, marketing and communications. What type of internships do our students hold? So along with the consulting companies, there are analyst and associate roles. So that large bucket, that's where those analyst and associate consulting, that's the direct correlation there. On the flip side, sales, that tends to be the technology. There's a really great professor that you'll meet, Professor Weber. He is the ultimate salesman, and he will teach you your sales class, and he will expose you to a lot of different companies, tech companies, for sales positions. So that's where that large bucket comes from. In the bottom, you'll see marketing and communications again. So on the previous slide, there was a marketing and communications for industry. So that is a company that is a marketer or a communications company, but then there are roles in different types of industries that are marketing or communications roles. And we'll dig a little deeper into that. Great. So now we're going to dig into some of the industries and what type of jobs there are and the skills you'll need in those industries. So first we'll start with marketing and communications. So jobs that you'll find in or gyms that you get, promo codes or anything like that. And so that's marketing and communications. Social media, Instagram, Facebook, if you ever see any ads, there's a large team of people behind that pushing those ads to make sure that they're specifically targeted to you. Engagement specialists, community outreach, so building the network. This is a lot of, say, associations for specific, let's say a music association, building out specific outreach to those people that they know will become members of their association. There's a creative portion, so every Instagram post, there's an image, and so people create those images, or video production for Super Bowl commercials. Another part of marketing is events. So large company events where let's say, the word is escaping me, but industry events where a lot of people come together. So there's marketing, there's signage, and you have ticket sales and those types of things. And finally, public relations, which falls into marketing. Companies. So
Sorry,
say,
Dan, you froze for a second. Could you go
oh,
back?
yeah, where public relations.
I think so.
So public relations, it's a team that promotes the brand of something. It can be a celebrity, or it can be American Express. So say American Express had a breach in their data. The public relations team is the people that would draft, how are we going to go about this to build trust in our consumers? So skills you'll need for any of these roles is strong writing skills. Are you a good proofwriter? Do you know where commas go and don't go? So a lot of that stuff. Microsoft Office suite, so that's PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, Excel. Marketing has changed in the past 15 years, and there is a lot of data behind it. So the reason that you're targeted for a specific ad is because they have data behind you and they know how to use it. So that is all stored typically in Excel. So there is a technical skill that's developed in the past 10 years in marketing that you will need to be aware of. Social media, yes, we're all on Instagram and Facebook, but do you know how to work the back end of it? Are you familiar with Facebook ads, YouTube ads, Google Analytics, all those types of things? And finally, Adobe Suite. You may see some job opportunities ask for Adobe Suite. Can you do Photoshop or anything like that? On an email marketing, there may be a graphic that they need to be edited before they send it out. So having that skill is useful. On the bottom, I have it broken up in-house versus agency. So when I say in-house, that means that there's a team of marketers and creative that work for the company. So I have Warby Parker, American Red Cross, Capital One, Walmart. They all have a team within the company that is the marketer, says, these are our consumers. The Instagram post that we think is the most relevant to our product. And so they work for the company, they get benefits from the company, and marketers for the company. On the other side, you have agencies. Wonderman DC is a large one in Washington, DC. McCann, if you've ever seen Mad Men, that's the company it's loosely based off of. Initiative works on mainly digital media, so all the Instagram posts you see, or YouTube ads. And then Edelman is a traditional marketing and PR company within DC. So agency means that they work for that company. So I am an employee of McCann, but I may work for Dunkin' Donuts. So Dunkin' Donuts is the client of McCann, and I'm the marketer coming up with creative solutions for Dunkin' Donuts. They hired McCann to work on those problems that they may have. So there's a bit of a difference. You can work for the company specifically, or you can work for a company that serves many different companies. So in agency, you're a marketer working for a marketing company that helps. Cool. Sales and business development. So roles here, sales development representative, or an inside sales versus outside sales. So what do I mean when I say inside sales versus outside sales? So when we think of a salesman, we think of the person who goes directly to the customer and says, hey, I've got this really great product. I'm going to sell it to you. Look at all these fancy things this gadget can do. right? And so that's outside sales. That is, you are representing the company selling the product to the consumer. There's also inside sales, and inside sales tends to be the entry level way into a sales position. So inside sales, you're inside the company doing all the background work so that the outside sales guy can sell the product. So you're kind of prospecting different places where consumers may be. You're making that initial outreach. So this is calling different people saying, hey, I work for this X company. We do this. Would you be interested in meeting one of our sales associates? So inside sales is revving up the interest so that the outside salesperson could make the deal. So inside sales is important because you learn everything about the company. You get your feet wet in starting to sell, but you're not quite out there representing the company. So that's the difference you'll see inside sales versus outside sales. And inside sales is typically where you'll begin. Skills needed for this, interpersonal skills is huge. So can you talk to someone that you've never met? Can you explain something effectively, concisely? You're not a rambler. Maybe you know exactly what you need to say to sell someone. CRM, I mentioned this a little earlier, customer relationship management. So there are large platforms, probably the biggest, that organizes all the customers into a database. It keeps track of when was the last time you contacted this customer? What did they say? Were they interested? Were you able to change this customer were they regular customers after the first outreach? So did you convert them from prospect to customer? This is a large database, and there's lots of different ones, but they have different interfaces, but they're all, once you figure out one, you can typically work on different ones. So CRM skill, if you're looking to get into sales, is huge. And presentation skills. It's much like interpersonal skills, but can you get up in front of 1,000 people and speak and get your message across and get some customers? So industries you'll see here, technology, retail, financial services. So going back to Jeffrey did kind of get a sales role. Wealth management is a type of sales position within financial services. Nonprofit, it's not always selling a product, but it's selling your mission. So can you fundraise? That is a big part of sales. Do you have fundraising skills? So that's where nonprofit falls in. And finally, sports and entertainment. Sell all those seats. So ticket sales, also billboards, finding different companies to buy a billboard and out in outfield. So that's sales and business development. Before we keep going, I wanted to mention that we're going to share this slideshow, and all these words, the roles, the skills will be useful search terms for you when you're looking for your first internship. So say sales was for you, maybe it's not sales development representative, but it's business development representative. They're kind of synonymous, but you could put in business development representative intern. And that will be typically how you'll start to find these positions. Same with marketing. So public relations intern.
Dan, I think you're frozen. Dan, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry about that. So did everyone hear everything about sales and search terms that I was talking about?
Yes.
Great. So onto that consulting bubble that a lot of students were in. And these are associates and analysts. So consulting is a big world in DC. There's a lot of government contracting. So the government has a specific problem. Maybe Parks and Recreation needs a new app. So there will be some kind of consulting services company that builds apps specifically for Parks and Recreation. So that's something that you'll start to see in DC. And that's where you'll see an associate or an analyst position. So skills here, program project management, again, Microsoft Office Suite, specifically Excel, and research skills. And the industries are consulting, finance. In the finance bubble, that's financial analyst, or investment banking. That's a very specific skill set. And we'll kind of get to that a little later. And then technology. So associates, also known as project managers, they work across business functions within the organization to ensure that the projects are on time and on budget. So these people are collaborative, they're organized, they're problem solvers. And these people can learn really well. So maybe they don't know how to make an app, but they know how to portray the problem that the customer has to the engineers. So this person is in between the people making the app and that Parks and Recreation company that I mentioned earlier that the consulting services is representing. On the other side, we have analysts. Analysts support the company in all research and data needs. So they're numbers driven. These people tend to come from STEM and they work independently. So this is a lot of Excel work. This is, can you take data and tell a story with it? Of numbers and data. So this is across many different industries. Of course, there's marketing analysts. So these people are looking at the click rates. So you put up an ad on Instagram, how many people are clicking through? And then is that becoming a customer? So that's where that analyst falls in. Any questions? Is it too much information? Just so I, because we'll keep touching base, and you can connect with me personally, and we can start to talk more in depth about what resonated with you and where your interests lie, as well as Mary Kate. I'm sure you mentioned a little bit in your onboarding, maybe what you think you might like to do, or how to best utilize your undergraduate degree.
And from my standpoint, I think it's good information for folks that might not be familiar with some of these roles, because as they start seeing ads for internships that says analyst or business development, it's really helpful to know what that entails.
Yeah, and to build on that, you learn about the roles and then you learn about the industry. So there are these two components that you can kind of mix. So marketing come together, or you're a salesperson but you love sports, so that's where sports and entertainment mix with the business development representative. So exactly, Stu, it's kind of learning these the titles of roles and then researching different industries that you're interested in. That's the goal of this presentation, so that we can build on this when we meet again. So nonprofit, Washington, D.C. has a robust nonprofit community. There's a wide variety of industries they serve, as well as job functions available. So nonprofit just means that you're not making money. Any money that comes in goes out. That's the simplest of terms. Of course, it gets more complicated, but that's another story. So the industries for nonprofits, typically religion. So churches are nonprofits. Catholic Charities is a nonprofit. There's political nonprofits. So a lot of political campaigns, the money comes in, the money goes out. So they make sure that they spend it all on staff and ads and all that type of stuff. Environmental. So if you've ever seen the people on the street corners in different cities, the Nature Conservancy, all these types of things. So these are advocates advocating on anything from the Hudson River up here, or Save the Pandas, any type of thing there. There's environmental companies, groups. International agencies. So American Red Cross is a part of the larger Red Cross. So large NGOs, they call them, but these nonprofits help solve world problems. So, the AIDS crisis in Africa, a lot of these types of things. The fine arts, that's where I fall in. So opera companies are nonprofits, museums are nonprofits, anything like that. Civil services and industry trade associations. So the Teamsters, a lot of these trade associations, any trade. So even musicians, they're part of a trade. We have AGMA. So it's like a guild, a union, you pay into it. People fight on your behalf to make sure that your rights are preserved. And so these are nonprofits as well. Job functions within these. Fundraising is number one for nonprofits. Nonprofits do not exist without funds, and so they will spend most of their money on staff members to make sure that more money is coming in. So if you are a sales type person, but you are passionate about a specific thing, so me personally, I have a lot of sales skills, and I love opera. Maybe I want to work for an opera company on the fundraising side, making sure that there's revenue coming in so that they can keep performing. Events bring in the fundraising. So if you're super organized, you can do event management. Every nonprofit has a large gala every year where, people from large companies come, they buy out a table and they raise money and they have a great time, and it's for a good cause, and so that's events. Membership, similar to fundraising, but a little different. Nonprofits will sometimes have membership. So these associations, you pay a fee annually to be a part of the association. So maybe you're a sales type person, but you don't like to constantly go out and get new people. You like to cultivate relationships. Membership would be for you. So you like to check in with people every 3 months, every year. You're detail oriented in people's stories. So you know that so-and-so's kid just got married. That's where your skills will be really useful for membership. Administrative. So nonprofits are companies, and there's administrative functions for the companies. So they will have budgets. They need people to manage the office if they own an office, expense reporting, all these types of things. So if you're super organized, you're pretty good with numbers, administrative parts of nonprofits may be helpful for you. And then finally, research. Rockefeller Institute comes to mind. So these are people who are working for the nonprofit to research. So Rockefeller Institute started vaccines. So they do a lot of, they didn't invent vaccines, but their main start was from vaccines. So there's a bunch of doctors behind there that do a lot of research for the nonprofit. So not sure a lot of you will go into that, but that's another function within nonprofits. Higher education, Mary Kate, Bill, myself, Stu, we all work for Catholic University. Colleges hire a lot of people. So universities have a wide variety of opportunities for MSB students. Alumni relations, so fundraising, donor relationships, database management. So this is that sales role in a university. So can you reach out to alumni and say, hey, you graduated 5 years ago, we haven't heard from you. Would you like to get re-involved? It's homecoming is coming up this year. Are you going to come? So That's alumni relationships. Career services, that's where myself and Mary Kate fall. This is strategic communications and data analytics. So, and for career services, so we every year kind of figure out what companies hire our students and what companies we like our students to work for. So we strategically reach out to different companies in the area. If a company's headquarters is moving to DC, we'll kind of reach out to them and say, hey, can we get in contact with one of your recruiters, learn about. And then data analytics. So we need to organize all the information we have about companies as well as students. So job placement, those types of things. Every year our seniors graduate and we need to create different graphs and reports on the data of those students and where they ended up working. Admissions, it's also a sales type role. You're out there promoting the university. So bringing in the customer, which is the student, and saying, Catholic University is a really great place for you to study. Here's why. Campus ministry and student services. A lot of this will be events. So if you like events, this will be an interesting place to look. Also, Catholic University has a really great relationship with the larger community outside of the campus. They do things like tutoring students in the area. I know they do food banks and all those types of things. So if that's something that interests you, there is an opportunity there. And finally, academic research and teacher's assistants. So if you're really good at a certain subject and you can help a professor teach that, keep them organized, there's a position there. As well as universities will sometimes hire a student to do some research for them. So say they were looking to create a new major in the politics department. Could you kind of check out all different universities and do some competition analysis and see, is there a need in this market? So that kind of research sometimes pops up in the university. All right, so we have another story. We have Penny. So Penny was a politics major, and she had dreams of being a staffer on Capitol Hill, being around senators, US representatives. That's where she really thought she was going to be. And then she interned for a representative, and she maybe didn't really like the politics of it, pun intended. But so she thought, I have this experience in politics. I learned a lot of history. I learned a lot of interpersonal communications. But I think I want to go into business. So Penny came across the MSB program, and she got accepted, and she worked with her network as well as the staff. So she got an internship doing contracts and budget for a nonprofit in DC that worked with small governments. And so she got her feet wet in numbers and financial reporting. And she started to realize, okay, I'm pretty good with numbers. I'm pretty good with data. Come spring semester, a consulting firm came on campus and she interviewed and she got the job. And there she learned a lot of different technology skills. And she was there for 4 years and she really grew into a great project manager. So she, going back to that previous slide, was really great at working across different functions within the company and making sure that everyone had the information they needed. And she moved projects along in a really successful way. 4 years into that position, she ended up getting her dream job. And this her undergraduate in interpersonal skills and politics and how to work with people, her internship in numbers and data and financial reporting, her consulting job for the past 4 years, where she did presentation, problem solving, project management, and all of that came 5 years upon graduation into a really great job in technology project management at Capital One. So as you can see, it never ends. So you have your undergraduate degree, you get some skills, you have your internship, maybe you have 2 during the MSB program, and you get skills and you learn what you want to do, what you don't want to do. Then you get a job and you gain more skills. And like I said earlier in the very beginning of this presentation, start to think, okay, I see myself in 2 years. What's my dream job? Maybe my dream job, I need 5 to 10 years experience. How am I going to get that experience? And how am I going to be the most competitive person for that role when it comes about? So this program is a really great step for you in starting to get there. So take this time to really think about, what do I want to do? Where do I see myself going? And those types of things. Jot them down. If you have a diary or a journal or some sort, you can kind of start to write it down and see if it changes. You know, this year you're going to be exposed to a lot of different companies. We'll do some company visits. If your interests change, and that's okay, and then you adjust and you say, oh, I didn't even know this job existed. How exciting is this? This is actually my dream job, and I found out about it from the program. So start to think this way. I think it will really serve you well. So I have some next steps for you. I gave you a lot of information. So number 1, did you have an internship in your undergraduate? Did you do a certain project with a professor? Start to think about the different experiences you've had so far. What did you like about them and what didn't you like about them? When you start to think this way, it will really be beneficial for you in finding your internship and eventually a full-time job. 2, what industries do you find interesting? Do you love sports? Are you interested in sports? Are you interested in entertainment? Do you have a passion for pandas and you want to work for Save the Pandas Foundation? Start to think, what industries do I think I'd be successful in that match with my interests? What careers do you find? What careers interest you? So not only is there what industry, but what careers? What could you see yourself doing for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week? Do you love to be in numbers and draft reports, or do you want to spend 40 hours a week connecting with people and selling products? So start to think about that as well. What skills will you need to find success? So are you a numbers person and maybe you have a science background or an engineering background, but maybe you don't have Excel skills? Or are you a marketer and you love to think creatively, but you don't have Adobe Suite skills? So start to think about what industries do you find interesting, what careers interest you, and what skills will you need to get a job in those 2 above. So a lot of this is just starting to jot down what interests you and what do you need to be successful in those interests. Also, start a conversation. So you're joining the MSB program. It's a great time to build your network, but also to utilize the network you have. So friends and family. Father's Day is coming up. I know I'm going to a barbecue to see my dad. Start to say, hey, I'm going to this program, a business program. Really excited. I did some research. I'm interested in this company and these job functions. What do you do for a living? And or maybe you never asked your uncle really what he does. You know he goes up to New York City every day, but you've never learned about what he does. So start to connect with people close to you and learn about their careers, and that's really the best network you'll have. They will be advocates for you for your whole life. MSB staff, it's great to meet you virtually today, and so I am now a advocate for you. Bill's an advocate for you. Mary Kate, Stu, we are all here for you to help you. So reach out to us and say, hey, Dan, love that presentation. Really interested in marketing. Some of it went over my head. Can you talk to me more about it? I really want to learn about XYZ. Maybe do some research, and then we can have a really in-depth conversation. Your undergraduate faculty or mentors. So did you have a professor that you really got along with really well, or a mentor? For me, I had a voice teacher or a piano teacher. You never know who people know. So people have had long lives, some of these professors, and they may have come across someone who worked at PwC, who's their best friend, who's in their son's little league team, that can make that connection for you. So you just never know. So kind of getting used to that elevator pitch saying, I just graduated my degree in this. I'm going to Catholic University to study MSB. I'm really excited about these different things. Hopefully I see myself working in marketing. So starting to get into that habit, and you never know what opportunities will just come out of that. LinkedIn connections. So we're going to talk about this in the next 2 sessions, but if you are on LinkedIn and you have some established connections, now is a good time to just look at their profiles, send a message and say, busy, would love to chat with you for 30 minutes about your experience. I see you work for Capital One. I'm really interested in learning what the company culture is like, going into this MSB program. These are my goals, hopefully. So starting that conversation as well. You'll see that there's a theme here. Okay, questions?
Dan, there's nothing in the chat.
Great. So first off, I just want to say, I see a hand.
I have a quick one. I feel like you're probably going to touch on it in some of the later sessions, so you can stop me if we are. But in terms of the startups versus like the more institutionalized internships and stuff, with a lot of those companies, at least in my experience when I've looked, some of them honestly come across as like great opportunities, almost too good to be true and kind of scammy. Do you have any suggestions on how to kind of navigate, okay, which one is like a legit one that is I'm actually going to get like the valid experience in, which one am I just going to be used for getting coffee and doing random things that
I didn't get housekeeping today. I just put the privacy.
That's what.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm marking down the 3 towels.
Okay.
When they come tomorrow, there should be 7 towels for them to pick up.
Sweet.
Lionel, I think your sound's on.
You're good.
All right. Dan, do you want to answer?
we lose him.
I think we lost him too. Mary Kate, do you want to give it a try?
Yeah, sure. Sometimes you won't know right off the bat when you're reading things, but I would say if your gut is telling you it seems scammy, it's probably scammy. So that would be number one. Number two is you can always email us to run it by the team to see if we've heard of it or if we've flagged it for any, red flags or something bad in the past. And we can give you guys information on that. Or if we know somebody who works there to kind of make that connection so you get an insider scoop on what the company is really about. So I would say those would be the three ways to just double check and make sure that it isn't a scam. Usually if you are able to talk to somebody in the company is the best case scenario, and somebody that you trust or is like a second degree connection, whether it's another alumni or someone through the program, that will give you the best information if it's the right fit for you.
Yeah, and resources like Glassdoor and other places like that are always good to double check what a company and the culture are like.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, Glassdoor.com, if you haven't used it before, employees will go in and give their rating based on, and it will share salary information most of the time too, and day-to-days and what their experience was like as an employee, whether they're currently there now or they were there in the past. So I would check that out as well.
Thank you.